Hello friends, this is Angel, and you are you, and thank you for watching this video, or for intending to watch it. I hope you keep watching it. Thank you for watching the past videos if you have. If you haven't, there are 3 episodes of Behind the Muzak before this that you can check out. 2 of them zoom in on a particular Fire-Toolz album of mine, and the other is a general Q&A, and that's also what this one is going to be. I really was excited to dive into another album and do a long video going really in depth about it, and I'm definitely going to do that. I've had a hard time deciding on which one I want to do next because I'm just so excited to go into all of them. I'll do that at a later date. I have so much going on. I have a more than full-time job, and then music, which is also kind of a job, a house to take care of, cats to take care of. I wish I was making a video like every week. Like I have this weird desire to like do YouTube. Hi, come up here. Come up here. I want to make, I don't want to just make videos about myself and my own music. I want to make them about other things. It would be cool to just like have a video just about, I don't know, spirituality, or another one just about like the music I love and why I love it. I have tons of ideas, and maybe I'll get to them eventually. I really just wanted to do another video ASAP, and I figured the quickest way to get one together would be to force other people to come up with half the content. I'm gonna start going through questions that very few people left me on Instagram and Twitter when I announced that I was doing a video. So, this is Porcelina. She really likes to show up when I'm filming and talking to the computer. She's in all my conference calls. I want to pack this bowl really quick. Alright, time for the questions. Araliloya says, I would love to hear anything about She Was Me, My Name Was Surrounded. I'm so curious about the memories or images you have associated with that song. Thank you. That's a cool question. Yeah, this comes from a dream I had when I was in 2nd grade, which was in 1992, I believe. It was the most memorable dream I've ever had. There were like 4, I think, or maybe 3, I don't know, I'll figure it out when I go through it, scenes, I guess you could say. In the first one, I was in class in 2nd grade in the school that I went, in the room that I went to school in, so that was consistent, and there was a girl in the class that I felt really struck by, and I wasn't in love with her per se, or maybe I was in a very 2nd grade way. I was like fascinated with her, and I wanted to get to know her. I wanted to know about her. So I remember looking through folders in a file cabinet. It was just like a file for each student, and it contained just like drawings and just, you know, work that we had done. And I remember looking at her folder. I knew that I had found hers, but I couldn't see the words. I couldn't see her name. They were all blurry. I remember the teacher had drawn like a squiggly line around her name, like on the file folder, because she was just artsy and would always draw like little, you know, stars and just, you know what I mean, just cute stuff. I'll skip around in the dream. The very last scene was me walking through a field at sunset, maybe sunrise, and it was a field, and we were walking just down the field, like kind of into the sunset, you know, like the end of a movie. I still hadn't registered what she'd look like. I didn't know what she looked like. It was just like a presence. The only thing that I remember about her was that she had really long, I think, dark hair, maybe black or dark brown or something like that. The word surrounded has 2 meanings. It's not just the squiggly line that surrounded her name on the file folder. The song by Dream Theater called Surrounded was sort of playing on an endless loop as we were walking across the field into the sun. Specifically, near the end of the song, during the syncopated delay guitar solo. That part just kept looping. When you listen to the part, the emotion just keeps heightening and heightening. And in my dream, it was on a loop, so it, but not a loop to where when it heightened, it would drop back down to where it started. It actually just kept climbing, as if there kept being key changes or something. The other part of the title, She Was Me, is something that I'm just kind of adding to my memory. I just started thinking about, well, what if that girl, whatever, well, let's just call her. I just started thinking, oh, what if that's me? Because in my dream, I was like a little boy. Like I was little Justin, because I was in 2nd grade, and obviously I didn't know anything about gender back then. So I just thought it would be interesting to think of this dream girl that I'm like romanticizing in my dream, being myself, being me, coming to know myself. That person that I was so fascinated with, so curious about, in love with, walking into the sunset with, but couldn't quite make out, couldn't quite recognize, couldn't really get her name. I couldn't really see her face. Just this idea of like coming out of my own cocoon, getting to know myself, coming to know myself, who I really am, and just sort of imagining that girl as me, like as a metaphor. The music video is very basic. It's just kind of like textures. Gummo enthusiast, somebody that has something not in common with me, says pros and cons of AI art as a medium for you personally. For me personally, I don't see any cons. Of course, anything involving artificial intelligence and even just tech in general, there's so many implications, you know, social, political, spiritual, even philosophical, economic. It goes on. And when it comes to art and the creative arts, you know, whether it be visual or music or dance or anything, I think that right now we're really nervous about AI playing a hand in art and music. We needn't be. I think that the human element will always remain until we're extinct. I don't think that any machine will ever be able to, they'll be able to fool us, but they'll never be quite right. I'm not worried about it taking over. If there's any point where an artist generates an entire album using AI based on one single prompt, to me, although in my eyes right now I think about that and I'm just like, that sounds weird. But when we get to that point, that's gonna be normal. Maybe people will have 10,000 albums based on a prompt they gave it, or videos, or music, or images, and that will be that person's art. And if they're honest about their, process, and they say, I'm working with an AI here, it's like a collaboration almost, that's still legitimate. So this AI art that I've been doing lately, where I'm just feeding an AI prompts or images, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just doing like surface level stuff. These images that I'm making, I'm having fun. I'm fascinated with the worlds that it paints. I'm fascinated with learning how to get it to do certain things. It's really exercising my creativity. It's really inspiring me. The fact that I'm able to generate a lot of images in a short amount of time, like if I just sit at my computer for 3 hours, I can probably come up with a great set of 10 or 20 images. What I think helps me, and maybe it's because I'm slightly judgmental about it myself, but what helps me is transparency on your process, not step-by-step instructions, but like if you make sample-based music, or you're making AI art, that you prompted and that you told something to generate and then you're manipulating it, like any variation thereof. I think it's cool to just be upfront about that. Then again, I don't think this is necessary because it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is the art itself. But I do think it's really interesting to talk about what is behind it. Not so that you can decide whether you like it or not, because I've just been asked by a lot of people, how much of your music is sampled? Because they're trying to figure out whether they can like it or not, or they want to know how valuable to consider it. I think that's kind of crappy. I would say there's really no cons unless you're being somebody you're not, unless you're trying to pass something off as one thing when it's not. If you're telling people you sat down and painted that or designed it in Photoshop, then I feel like that's crappy. One of your favorite artists, and I know it's probably one of your favorite artists if you're watching this, and one of mine obviously is Keith Rankin, who is Giant Claw and runs or co-runs Orange Milk Records. I mean, he's one of our favorite artists. His pieces are absolutely stunning. But a lot of what he does is tracing. He's using other images a lot of times, like photos. He's tracing shapes and using Photoshop tools to actually repaint and in his own way. But the thing is, he's completely upfront about that. I mean, he's got videos years and years old on YouTube of himself making an album cover, so you can watch, you can see like what he's tracing. And I just think that's really cool. It doesn't make his work any less valuable. It just makes it what it is. It's part of its personality. I think those kind of things are significant, but I don't think that they're there to give it more or less value. VCR Ghosts asks, did you feel like there was a distinct point in your life where you, quote-unquote, chose art, so to speak, and dedicated yourself fully to it from that point on? No. My whole life I've felt chosen by it, but it didn't feel forced. It felt perfect and right. Making art has been an addiction, an obsession, a passion, a crutch, but also a calling or purpose even. My whole life, since just as soon as I could like think for myself at all. I was raised in a music family. Nobody played instruments or anything, but they loved music and music was always on. My parents were very passionate about music. So I grew up with a lot of classic rock and 80s rock, hair metal and glam, and a lot of prog. My mom liked Elton John and the Beatles and stuff too, but mostly rock-oriented stuff. And I know that had a lot to do with my fascination with music and art, but at the same time, I felt like I was born in a river of musical inspiration, and I've never gotten out of it, and it's never run dry, and it never calms down. So there was no active dedication. I feel like I've had such an easy life because it all chose me, and I let it happen, and I'm happy that way. I mean, there's something to say about surrendering to the flow of life and not forcing anything. I mean, I've done a lot of forcing in my life, but in music, the only times I've ever tried to force something were things that I think another person was pressuring me to do. And that's the only time when music felt awful, felt like I didn't want to do it, wasn't interested in it. Whenever it came to school band, when it came to, county or state band, symphonic stuff, whenever it came to, you should join this band because they're popular and they need a drummer or something. Whenever it was play these covers because the crowd is gonna like it and respond to it. Whenever it was get up front on the mic and look at people in the eye and connect with them, and I can't do it. It's not who I am, and it never has been. And anytime I've tried to put on a show with dance and sassiness and shit like that, I feel like I'm faking it. I'm a stiff, expressionless performer, unfortunately. I mean, there's definitely been times that I've freaked out, got really into it, but the only time that ever happened was because I was completely in my own world, totally in my own world. And I may have acted out of excitement. I remember shows where I would sort of turn my back to the crowd and then jump back and slam into people and fall over and break the headstock on my guitar and stuff. But that was just me in my world. So that's all for Instagram. My friend Raleigh texted me this as I was pretty much done editing the video, but I thought it was a really good question and I wanted to add it in. Raleigh asks, Since you have an attunement to the spiritual realm and you've been outside a city for a year, I'm wondering how you sense differences in spiritual energy where you are now versus Chicago. Maybe it's not a worse, better question. Curious. Well, I can't really say that the spiritual energy that I perceive is any more intense or dense out in the suburbs or the country versus the city. I would say that my spiritual life has improved greatly because I've been able to have a much more peaceful day-to-day life. Well, on the outside. On the inside, things can get turbulent no matter where I am. And I think that's an important point to make anytime anybody is considering moving to a different location in order to better their life experience. It's definitely possible, and your environment, your surroundings can absolutely influence that. But what you're carrying around with you is gonna go with you anywhere you go. And that has proven itself true so many times in my life, especially moving out here. But the thing is, with all of this nature, with this neighborhood that I can walk up and down any time of day and not have to worry about harassment, even though there are like Trump flags around and this place is much more conservative than the city is, these people don't feel the need to have to say some shit or do some shit all the time anytime they see someone that may or may not look a little different from them. Like the people around here with their semi-offensive bumper stickers, you know, those ones that say like LGBT, but it's like a Statue of Liberty for the L, and the G like it has a rifle under it, and whatever else the other letters stand for. You know, when I see those kind of vehicles riding around here, I mean, they look right at me and they drive right past me. Sometimes they even smile and wave. I mean, I might not be decked out in makeup and wearing a short skirt, so they probably don't look at me and think immediately, oh, that's a tranny. But I do look weird. I mean, I always dress colorfully. I have bright red hair. To them, I'm probably a male, yet I'm presenting in either a feminine or alternative way, to say the least. But the people that live out here generally aren't under so much stress, aren't moving so fast, aren't having to deal with city traffic every day, aren't squished up against other people all the time, don't live in a place where there's just trash and smog everywhere, dudes on every corner shouting things at women as they walk by. So yeah, living out here has been amazing for my growth. It's been so much more peaceful. It's so much more nurturing. I can go out in my backyard and meditate or pray for like an hour and just not have anything interrupt me except for maybe some birds or squirrels running around, or one of my neighborhood cat friends wandering into the yard to say hello to me. Just the fact that I can go outside my house and sit somewhere outside that's a little bit isolated and just meditate or whatever it is, it's like night and day for me as far as enjoying my environment, getting something out of my environment. I do very much miss having more access to activity and people that I like. I don't really know very many people out here at all. If I ever really need community, I mean, there's a Buddhist center like 4 or 5 minutes down the road, and right next door to it is something called like the Unity Spiritual Center or something. So it's just like some kind of like universalist spiritual gathering. They like do church on Sundays and they have services, but it's like people from all traditions can come. So really this is just about me being in an environment that's more conducive to my spiritual growth. And maybe later in life I'll live somewhere that's just harder to live because I'll need the exposure and I'll need to grow more, and maybe I'll need that challenge. But out here, it's been really great, and it hasn't been great because I feel the divine out here more than I did in the city. In fact, if you want to look at it that way, I would say it's exactly the same. I mean, how could it be any different? It is impossible to go anywhere where that energy you're talking about is inaccessible. So it's really not about a spiritual presence in a geographical location. It's more about my spiritual presence in whatever geographical location I'm in, and that geographical location can be more or less conducive to my personal temperament and needs. On the Twitter thread, my friend Joey asks If you had to describe Fire-Toolz to someone who never listened before, how would you? Please help me, I've been asked this many times. Did I answer this in the last Q&A? Like a question like this? I don't remember if I did or not. It really just depends on who's asking. It might depend a little bit on their background. I remember I was in an Uber once with this guy who I would otherwise think probably wouldn't be into my music. He asked what kind of stuff I played, and I was just kind of a little bit like, it's electronic bass, but it's not really like techno, it's more kind of industrial. And I said it like that, and he was like, I really like Kraftwerk, and I was like, okay. Like, yeah. Far from Fire-Toolz, but at the same time, like, definitely close. I feel like with almost any type of person, I would be able to describe it in some way. If it was just like some old lady on the street whose favorite music is like Frank Sinatra and Patsy Cline, I would probably just tell her that it's quite strange. I probably wouldn't say psychedelic, but I might say something like futuristic. I would say it's very artistic music, or something like that. I probably wouldn't even say electronic. But if it's somebody who's like at a show that you and I would go to, I could be more specific about it and start rattling off genres. If I were to talk about the jazz influence, I would probably be clear that where I'm coming from is more of a jazz fusion and 80s influence, new age, and electronic music. Because otherwise they'll think that I'm talking about Miles Davis. Burnt Synapse Grind asks, what's the inspiration behind your lesser known aliases like Toad Computers, APK Net Limited, Settings? Do I have something called Settings? No. I don't know. I'm sorry. Continuing, website, Path to Lobster Believers, Inappropriate King Live, and others. When you made a track, how did you know which project it would be under? Well, I wanted to do a video that kind of goes through all of my projects, so maybe I won't go into too much depth here, but I will say that there's only so many projects that are active at a time. You're naming things that didn't exist at the same time, so I wouldn't have had to decide. Most of the time, I go into something knowing what alias it's going to be under because the alias is directly related to the process in which I make that music. But sometimes you don't know. There have been a few non-local forecast songs that have become Fire-Toolz songs and vice versa. And sometimes when that happens, I'll have to remove or change a few things so no rules are broken. Like, I wouldn't do any harsh vocals or any noise or like really experimental sounding stuff in a non-local forecast song, most likely. With Fire-Toolz, you could probably pass off an entire song as being for either project, I guess. If a non-local forecast sounding song is on a Fire-Toolz album, it's because I really intentionally want to place it in that context. Albums are really important to me, and that's why the way things are going with streaming and the importance on singles is really hard for me to adapt to, because I don't want somebody to listen to a song. I want somebody to listen to an album so they can get an idea. And when they single out that song, they see it as a puzzle piece. They see it as an appendage on the body. They see it as one person in the world that is Fire-Toolz. That's one reason why I feel so safe jumping around genres. I'm really just painting such a big picture. That's why sometimes it's hard for me to let some of my songs be singles when they don't explore a whole lot of different territory in the same song. Because when I come out with a single, that's a pretty big statement. That's saying, hey, this is what Fire-Toolz is doing. This is what Fire-Toolz is. And if it's only like one or two genres or something, I don't feel like I'm being honest. I feel like I'm putting a representation of me out in the world that's so incomplete. That just feels dissonant to me. But it's all a part of the game, and it's just part of reality, and it's totally fine. I can work with it. I always have worked with it. There's just like a feeling in my chest that happens when I release a single that doesn't start out ambient and become, IDM, jazz fusion, and then ends in black metal. That's why I love albums so much. Now, I don't know how to say this person's name, but their Twitter name is Vi, so I'm just gonna say Vibe. Which format/merch for Eternal Home is your favorite? Oh, I'm glad you asked, because that reminds me, I have a double album coming in October called Eternal Home. It'll all fit on a CD and a cassette, but the vinyl set is 2 slabs of wax, and there's a transparent version, which, as I'm recording this, there's only like 20 left of, so they might be gone by the time I post this. And there's also like a swirl and regular black. There's also cassettes and CDs, like I said, and there are grinders, and we have fanny packs now too. And there's a sewn-in photo of me inside the fanny pack. So there's gonna be 25 new songs. We will have more singles coming out soon, up until the release date in October. We're also going to probably do like a listening party stream on Twitch. I'm really excited about the album. It's been a long time since it's finished, because these things just take a while to get ready and get produced. At this point, I already have like 25 new songs that you'll probably hear some of in 2022. As far as my favorite merch item, I don't personally buy a lot of physical media. I mean, these records are going to be beautiful. The artwork is beautiful. The layout is beautiful. The font we used for all the text is amazing. If I were the fan and I wanted to walk away with something, I would probably get the long sleeve tee. Or if it's long sleeve, is it still a tee? I guess it's a tee. It's just a long tee. Yeah, I'm just like really into cozy clothes, and I like long sleeve, and I like being bundled up and stuff. So I would probably go for the long sleeve. There will be more merch that will come out in a little while. There's a few other things up our sleeves, some of which we're not sure if they'll come through. Other things are definite in relation to this album, Eternal Home. And yeah, there's more videos coming too, most of which are not done by me, which is really exciting. Liebers, I guess it's Liebers. Lebers, no, it wouldn't be Lebers. The E would be long because there's only one consonant. Tell us more about Hologram of a Composite World of Objects, a definite personal favorite of mine, and any reason in particular for the title-subtitle motif across Field Whispers. Well, anytime there's a title and a subtitle, it's because I just want to say more shit. Sometimes it looks better to put in brackets or in parenthesis or something else. Sometimes it's a comma, I don't know. My track titles are kind of like, the title itself is part of the art. It's one of the instruments in the song. It's one of the lyrics. It's part of the cover art. So I just kind of have fun with the song titles. So there's no real reason for that. I just happen to do the title-subtitle thing across that album more than I have on others. My usage of the word hologram is often either in relation to the Akashic Records, or I'm referring to the holographic nature of the universe. And who knows, maybe they're the same thing. World of Objects is just referring to our physical dimension. Tower asks, how did you decide what went on I Can't Die instead of Eternal Home? Well, easy. Eternal Home was totally complete months and months and months before. Eternal Home is a physical release with 10,000 formats and is released on a label that spends a lot of time doing PR work, and I Can't Die was just a digital EP that I decided on a whim to put out, and I had finished all those songs pretty much days before I released it, whereas Eternal Home is coming out like 10 months after I finished everything. Joey's back What effect does smoking so much cat hair have on your music? I would say a lot of cat hair has been ingested in my life, for sure, because I always have several cats, and I don't really bother getting the cat hair off of stuff most of the time until it's time to, like, you know, do a once-over of the whole house. I wouldn't know how it affected my music. I mean, I've been ingesting cat hair my entire life, so I really wouldn't know. I have no experience to go off of. I have never not been ingesting cat hair. Oh, and you said smoking, not just ingesting. I mean, yeah, that's just one way of doing it. I mean, unfortunately, cat hair gets in the weeds sometimes. Sometimes I'll have the bowl like up to my mouth and I'll see a little hair like sticking out of it and I'll just be like, oh well. Joey also freaking asks, what patch or sample have you secretly used the most in your music? I don't know how much of a secret it is. There are a bunch of voice-based synth presets in Alchemy that I have been using heavily since the Enter Being album, and I've probably used it on every album. And I think a lot of people that use Logic and use Alchemy a lot, like, know that patch pretty well, and when they hear it, you know, they make comments like, oh, Logic Core or something like that. I have no shame because those voice patches are beautiful. I use the same shakuhachi sample that a lot of other artists used in the 80s and 90s and today. I'm an unapologetic Alchemy preset user, and same goes with the Korg Wave Station and the Korg M1. I mean, Non-Local Forecast is almost entirely untweaked presets from the Wave Station and M1. And I think that's part of the effect that the music has. I mean, it's very nostalgic. And Joey's last question is, how much of Fire-Toolz is live drums? Almost none, actually, because I really had no way of recording a drum set. I have this electronic kit that I just got. I don't know if you would consider them live. I mean, a lot of the drum parts in Fire-Toolz songs I did play live on this set and then tweak on the computer. Eternal Home is going to be the first album by Fire-Toolz that has ever had live drums that I've played. They're only in 2 or 3 songs, I think. What I did one day was go to my friend Doug's recording studio, Jam Deck, and we just picked like a series of 5 or 6 tempos, and he just hit record and let me play for a good 10 or 15 minutes for each tempo. And then I ended up having him do some preliminary mixing because I'm lazy, and then he sent me all of those tracks, and I used them in a bunch of songs on Eternal Home and basically wrote music around them because I was just improvising. I took some of the proggiest things I played that were constantly changing where I had no idea what time signature I was even playing, and I was just making sure the quarter note was consistent. You says BLM says, is there any specific reason for the inclusion of clean vocals in your more recent songs, i.e. Shitting into Gaia's Heart? I give this place and Shenpa Indicator Light. I think I just kind of had the idea that I wanted to try singing more again. That's really all. It's a lot easier for me actually to compose music with no vocals. It's a lot easier to compose vocals that are harsh and staticky and screamy than it is to come up with good vocal melodies. I've sang in bands all growing up. I just haven't done it much lately. Most of my melodic tendencies have been using a synth or a guitar, but I just kind of had the idea, yeah, I should try to sing more because I know how to. I'm not really good at it, but I'm good enough to where I can get away with it. I love singing. I love singing and music, so there's really no reason why not. I mean, I started doing Fire-Toolz with a few kind of specific goals in mind, a few specific sounds I wanted to take on. And as time has gone on and I've explored all these different genres, I've been really happy with the way that harsh, aggressive vocals sound over other kinds of music that you wouldn't normally hear it on. I just have a tendency to want to branch out and become more diverse, and it was only inevitable that I'd start singing more. Eternal Home is there's not much singing on it. There's only, I don't know, 3 or 4 other songs with singing on it. Dad Villainy, my friend from the wonderful group Ebony Tusks, who you should definitely hear.
Not enough to a shark with a jaw full of overconfidence, huh? My whole team doing numbers. My homeboy slow creep on the come.
Asks, what experiences have you had discussing God or the spiritual with other musicians and or fans of your work? I can relate to your exploration, and I'm curious if that's been a positive experience. I'm really hesitant almost all the time to even use the G word, even with myself. You know, the connotations are rough for people like me, and probably you too. It's really hard for me to bring it up. It's really scary because I just get it. I get what misapplied religion has done in the world.
I edited out a 15-minute rant on spirituality and religion, but I basically meant to say, to answer your question, it's been a decently positive experience discussing spirituality from the Fire-Toolz soapbox, but I'm also quiet about it except for what's buried in my lyrics and surface level shit I say on Twitter. I do fear that if I am loud about the Buddha or the Hindu Vedas or Jesus, I will be associated with the literalist, fundamentalist, dogmatic, non-universalist, punitive, tribalistic, misapplied, misinterpreted, misappropriated religion we see in institutions today, which is used to train you to deny yourself.
I hope this was remotely entertaining. I hope to do another video soon. I'm still trying to figure out which album I want to talk about, but maybe you can tell me in the comments what you want me to talk about next. I can't promise another video is coming very soon. It might be a couple weeks or a month or a couple months maybe. I have a lot going on. I'm mixing and mastering like a lot of stuff for a lot of people, and my schedule is pretty packed. But if you want to get something scheduled, feel free to hit me up. Thanks for watching, and that's all. Goodbye. Yeah? Yes, Bear? Okay. Yeah? Yes? Would you like a pet? You have no collar. Oh, you're a good baby, though. Hi. Hey, sweetie. Why do you not have a collar? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Hey, sweetie. Oh my gosh, those are so aggressive. Holy shit. Oh my goodness. You're a baby, aren't you? Oh my goodness.